Hey, so I wanted to make an episode that I've been waiting for a while just because, well, I don't know. It's about the Afghan war. And specifically to veterans and why they do still have honor and shouldn't feel like they were the bad guys or anything. And also, I will start it with the conclusion, like start and end. There's a lot of Afghanis who have better lives and who got out, and even the ones who didn't get out, there's some, you know, the sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Because we do have something to show for our efforts in the form of Afghani immigrants who are, wonderful people. I've already had Afghani food, so, um, and there's so many Afghanis that I've seen on YouTube and stuff who got out to Australia or France or the UK. And, it would have just been all Taliban for the last 20 years. Now, I want to talk about the war so that people can kind of understand it better. Um, it was absolutely ridiculous. For me personally, unforgivable for Joe Biden to act like there were two problems. First, acting like it was an issue of willpower on the part of the Afghan people and the ANA, the Afghan National Army, because it wasn't. It was a failure of logistics and leadership. They didn't have they didn't have any. I mean, it was just impossible to fight for that government, especially just the way everything was done. It was hopeless. It was never going to survive without outside support. Oh, due to the structure. And then the other unforgivable thing that Biden did was act like we won in 2012, and that because we got Osama, the war was actually won when we had troops there dying to nation build in Afghanistan. It's just what happened. And to act like, I think it's horrible. It's kind of like trying to ignore their sacrifice, kind of like with what Putin does in to the Russian troops in Ukraine, right? Like they're not really supposed to be fighting there, and so they just pretend like they were Ukrainians or Russian. Like, they have secret funerals and all that for the Russian soldiers that die in Ukraine. And I kind of got that vibe when he said like, "Oh, well, in 2012 we got Osama, and so we were never really supposed to be there anyways." And it's like, "Yeah, but you're the one who didn't want to leave after Osama bin Laden was dead. Not Biden, but, the government." So, our troops sacrificed to nation build in Afghanistan, and the leadership let them down and abandoned them, and then refused to take responsibility. And I feel like Biden was kind of gaslighting to say that the nation building project never even existed. Kind of like, well, we failed it. We failed our troops. We sent them to nation build when it was hopeless, and then it fell apart, and so we're just going to act like that never even happened. Not good. And gaslighting in regards to whether or not nation building is happening in Afghanistan has been going on since the very, very beginning. I would say the only president who didn't do it was Obama. During his surge and stuff, it was like, yeah, we are nation building because we have to. And Donald Rumsfeld, the secretary, I think the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense. Yeah, no, Colin Powell was Secretary of State. And then Donald Rumsfeld, when we first went into Afghanistan, said, and I quote, "There will be no nation building in Afghanistan. The idea was to go in, mess up the Taliban, kill Osama, and get out." Well, I mean, we did that in the end. We did do all those three things, but there was a little bit of nation building in the middle. Why is that? Well, There's a ton of reasons. Like, Rumsfeld, I don't know if he was lying or not, still, to this day. Did he know that we would have to nation build and that it would be a quagmire? Like, there was no other way it was going to go down, really. Unless we got Osama bin Laden at, I think, Tora Bora, whatever it was called. The United States almost got Osama bin Laden in 2001. Almost. And he escaped to Pakistan. And I don't know if we had killed him then, if we would have just left, but I think that now with that intro, I think that I should just, because these videos are big to upload, and so I'll make this video the intro, and then with part 1, I'm going to go into just Afghanistan, starting from 2001 all the way up until the start of Obama's surge. And then maybe including the surge. We might be able to cover both administrations, Bush and Obama, but probably just the Bush era for part 1, and then Obama for part 2, and then part 3 on the failure and where to go from it. So yeah, key takeaways. It's not the vets' fault, and it's not the Afghanis' fault. You know, there were a lot of Afghanis and a lot of veterans who sacrificed to make Afghanistan a better place, and there are Afghanis who have better lives because of that. So there is honor. And leadership just, it's unbelievable. The level of incompetence and waste on the part of the Pentagon is truly unbelievable. To the point where it's hard to even talk about without just sounding like an anti-military, you know. And it's like, well, I was working in the military-industrial complex the entire time, you know, making the bombs that we drop on the Taliban, and that wasn't really the main issue. Is not the supply line. When the United States, when a U.S. soldier calls in an airstrike and the airstrike is done by a U.S. jet dropping a U.S. bomb, that's one thing. The waste came from us funneling money to the Afghan government because it was too inefficient. So we were just pumping money to make up for the corruption and the loss, the slippage to corruption. And so there was never going to be anything. It was always impossible for us to leave. Like, I'll go into the Taliban's plan. In 2001, you know, it's like the Taliban already knew how it was going to go down because they've done it. It's not their first rodeo, at least not the Afghani people. The Taliban is new, though. You can't think of the Taliban as something that existed. I guess I'll leave it for the next episode. Maybe we have to go into Afghani history too, and the Soviets, and what happened before the Soviets, even more important, Afghan socialist government, the civil war, because you have to know who the Mujahideen are. And why we were reliant. Man, there's a lot of assumptions that the United States government made when we went in. When Donald Rumsfeld said there's not going to be any nation building, there's a certain amount of assumptions. So to figure out if he was lying or not, you have to go into their assumptions and why they made them. So, cool. Thank you, everybody. And to vets, please, like, I know that there's really high suicide rates because there were so many horrible things, and a lot of civilians killed, by both sides, and it was a horrible war. But, man, when you're feeling down, just ask an Afghani citizen if they're glad we went, you know? An Afghani American citizen. An Afghani American. You know, there's thousands and thousands. And I'm sure that they would all tell you that they're glad. And so would Vietnamese veterans. I say the same thing. There's so many Vietnamese who still fly the South Vietnamese flag, who fled during Saigon, just like fled from Kabul. And they're glad America fought the communists, and they're Afghani Americans are glad America fought the Taliban. So we lost, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Sure got a lot of them. All right, next time.